There is a peculiar lullaby in a glass. We lift it to our lips, and for a moment the world softens at the edges. The sharpness of self recedes. The knotted mind unties itself, and something like ease arrives. This is the temptation of alcohol, not a teacher but an anesthetic, a promise that the burdens of being can be dissolved with a sip. Yet, what it dissolves is not the root of our unease, but the very faculty that might see the root. Consider awareness as the lamp in a dark room. Alcohol is like a hand that comes and muffles the flame. The darkness feels kinder for a little while. The shadows lose their teeth. But the light that knows the furniture, the light that reads the texture of the world, is dimmed. In that dimness we trade clarity for comfort, lucidity for a borrowed oblivion. The consolation is short-lived, and when the lamp is relit, we find not a wiser self but an amnesiac one, with new holes where understanding ought to be. Spiritual freedom is not a state you buy to forget yourself. It is the long, quiet practice of waking. True intoxication, the rare and radical joy, is not the fugue of inebriation, but the fierce, undrugged seeing of what is. It is to behold your own restlessness without flinching, to touch the fear beneath the anger, to notice the grief behind the story you tell about yourself. This seeing is not ascetic puritanism. It is a generous curiosity. It allows feelings to move like weather through the sky of awareness, unclaimed and unresisted. I must admit, I've had my own dance with the bottle. Yes, I've laughed at myself, the irony not lost on me. Speaking of awareness, while sometimes succumbing to the lure of forgetfulness, but even in those moments I learned. It was a gentle reminder that wisdom is not perfection, and the path is one of discovery, even for me. Alcohol asks you to sign a contract with forgetfulness. I will trade you a little clarity for a lot of relief. But awareness, simple, stubborn awareness, asks for no transaction. It stands impartial and luminous, revealing that the so-called problem and the supposed solution are two appearances in the same play. When you practice presence, you learn that the impulse to numb is itself as instructive as the pain you wish to blunt. It says, here is a craving for escape. And in watching that craving without acting on it, you discover a freedom that no sedative can grant. The freedom to respond rather than to react, to choose rather than to be chosen by the chemistry of habit. So let your cups be modest, and let your silence be generous. If you must celebrate with drink, do so with the full attention of someone who knows it is a spice, not the meal. Otherwise, cultivate the lamp, the simple, stubborn practice of noticing breath, noticing thought, noticing the gap between one sensation and the next. There is a rapture in being awake to what is not because it erases sorrow, but because it reveals a presence in which sorrow can move, transform, and eventually rest. In the end, happiness sought through lowering oneself is a borrowed horizon. Awareness is the true ascent, not a climb away from the world, but a softening, a widening, an open-handed recognition that is already here without additives, without avoidance. Everything is arising and passing, calling again and again for the single act that heals, to see.